Yeah, I've stopped it. Hold on, guys. I apologize. I'm struggling. One last time, and I think we will have it. I hope. I hope.
Discovered hidden away in an upstairs closet in the mansion's family living floor and now located in the library is this rather uncommon French 8-day brass time and strike movement clock with what is known as a knife-edge suspension. A clock with a knife-edge suspension, in this case used in a French clock, is different from other clock suspensions in that it has no spring connecting the pendulum rod to a post that allows the verge to vibrate, causing the typical tick-tock sound. It also differs from a silk thread suspension found on many French clock movements from the early 1800s, where the pendulum rod hangs on a loop of silk thread. Instead, the knife edge arrangement utilizes a fixed pendulum rod that hangs by gravity from a small blade that fits in a V-block protruding at the rear upper part of the brass movement plate. This bronze door empire clock is in the Egyptian Revival style. It is also a portico design with a visible pendulum. This design has flanking Egyptian female standing figures known as caryatids, which support the upper portion of the case and movement. French Empire clocks with the Egyptian theme and knife-edge suspension seem to have been manufactured circa 1790 to 1810 and could well be contemporary with silk thread movements up to the 1830s. Egyptian Revival decorative arts, a style in Western art of ancient Egypt, are attributed to Napoleon's conquest of Egypt, and in Britain to Admiral Nelson's defeat of Napoleon at the Battle of the Nile in 1798. Publication of Napoleon's accompanying scientific expedition, beginning in 1809, inspired everything from sofas with sphinxes for legs, tea sets painted with the pyramids, and even the architecture of buildings. The style flourished during the period 1820 to 1850 and made a comeback in the 1920s. The mansion clock is a perfect match for its location in the library, which also contains several Egyptian Revival artifacts, including similar caryatids on the mantel candlesticks and on a table lamp. There is no signature on the porcelain dial and no name on the movement that would help identify the maker. Unfortunately, so many of these expert craftspeople and clockmakers who never signed their work are lost to history.
Okay, that was our first video, and our second one is going to be on a Waterbury clock, and you're going to have to bear with me a second because I need to go back now and set up that video so we can and hopefully I can replicate this process more successfully this time. Right, I'm going to start sharing, and hopefully you guys are going to hear and see this on the first attempt. Here we go. I'm not getting any audio. Are you guys hearing anything?
No audio.
No audio.
Let's just see if we're missing audio in that intro. Then I'll stop and go back again.
"11 years after the Civil War had ended, the United States celebrated the American Centennial in Philadelphia. It was the first time the United States hosted a World's Fair. Over 10 million visitors experienced exhibits from around the world and had the opportunity to witness some of the latest technologies, including typewriters, sewing machines, and Alexander Graham Bell's telephone. One of the exhibitors was Benedict & Burnham, a brass manufacturing company that specialized in brass parts and was the major shareholder of the Waterbury Clock Company. After the centennial celebration, the Waterbury Clock Company, along with other clock factories, started producing banjo clocks based on Willard's patented timepiece. On the family floor in the aide-de-camp room of the Georgia Governor's Mansion is the Waterbury model Willard No. 3 banjo timepiece. The 8-day timepiece, circa 1910 to 1915, has a brass movement powered by a lead weight on a brass cable hand, does not strike the hours. The mahogany case with gilt roping, brass side rails, and topped with a decorative finial consists of 4 main parts. The drum head houses the clock's movement, the porcelain dial with Arabic numerals. The middle section, or throat, provides a passage for the weight to descend and provides an area for the long pendulum. The pendulum box provides an area for the pendulum bob to swing. Below the box is an attached decorative bracket. Both the throat and pendulum box are decorated with églomysé paintings, commonly referred to as reverse paintings on glass. The lower glass features a painting of the USS Constitution engaged in a battle with the British frigate HMS Guerrier off the coast of Nova Scotia during the War of 1812. The battle was one of the first victories by the U.S. over the superior British Navy. Isaac Hull was captain of the ship which was commissioned in 1797. Known as Old Ironsides, it remains to this day the world's oldest commissioned ship, now berthed at the Boston Naval Shipyard. By the turn of the century, the Waterbury Clock Company was producing 600,000 clocks and watches each month. With a workforce of 3,000, it would become the largest clockmaker in the United States by producing popular watches like the Yankee $1 pocket watch. With the onset of World War I, the Waterbury Clock Company, along with several other companies, hired hundreds of young women to paint military watch and clock dials with luminous radium, which enabled the soldiers to read the clocks in the dark. Because the radium was expensive and to increase production, the women were encouraged to point their brushes with their lips, in turn exposing themselves to the poisonous paint. The Waterbury Clock Company would eventually end the practice after several deaths. After the war, the Waterbury Clock Company acquired the failing Ingersoll Watch Company and in 1931 began producing electric clocks and Disney character watches that included the popular Mickey Mouse watch. A Norwegian company purchased Waterbury Clock in 1942 and later became the U.S. Time Corporation company responsible for the Timex watch and its famous company slogan, Timex, takes a licking and keeps on ticking.
I wanted to be sure to let everyone see the credits, even though I'm showing this from my computer. I had no involvement. George Waterhouse gets all the credit for putting it together, and Pete and others for the photography and logistics. So
I think we need to give them a big hand for this. Way to go, George.
Thank you, Mary and George.
Did you have anything to add to it, George?
This is Pete. I only have one comment. Really miss Sandra Deal.
George, you're on mute.
Pete, what was your comment?
Well,
I really miss Sandra Deal. She did so much
yes,
for us.
She was great.
we, the last couple of times we've been to the mansion with the Kemps, that I don't think they really appreciate hearing the clocks. So they really, the last time or so we were there, they were just made sure they would work. And we moved the Waterbury clock from the aide-de-camp room because that room was converted into a room, sort of a playroom for the girls, the daughters, and all that antique furniture was moved out of that aide-de-camp room and set up for the kids. So Bill and I think Chris and maybe Charles we moved it down to the family sitting room downstairs. So it'll be seen by more people, but unfortunately the clocks aren't really being run. So. But putting the videos together, it took us a couple of years, but it's nice to see them all finished. And I think for many years, people will continue to enjoy them. And I'm thankful for all the people that helped us put it together, and Pete and others. And it took a lot of research, but it was well worth it.
I appreciate it. Go ahead.
I think it might be interesting in this era of Zoom meetings, if there are other chapters that might be interested in seeing these clocks, that we could, myself or someone else who has access to them, be a guest to their meeting and show them for their benefit as well. Since we're meeting virtually, it doesn't mean we have to keep these videos exclusive to the Atlanta chapter.
That was good.
The National Library yet?
Yeah. Mary, that was one of my questions. Where are they being kept, and where are they in record anywhere? Have they been entered into anything?
Yeah, they're on the national website. I mean, they're on Vimeo at NAWCC, so people could actually access them through Vimeo at NAWCC.
It would be a shame to have them lost. So if we can think of some place where they could be deposited, where they might be able to be retrieved at any time, that would be good. I mean, NAWCC is a pretty small operation. There should be some public storage.
George,
Well, I think a number of us have the what do they call? I'm showing my age. The thumb drive with them on it.
Thumb drive. Yeah, that was my comment. Yeah.
I was thinking of any place that has public records. Like we've had some things while Brooks was working with the legislature, some things were put in the record, and something like that would.
Pete, I think it's a great idea. What's so sad, George gave a copy, took them to the mansion. They all have copies. We gave them to the governor's office. And I am so concerned because this administration does not appreciate the antiques and the value of these things, and that just like the Capitol clocks, as Byron said, they just moved it out when they recarpeted, and he had to go in and get it back, and so they just don't have the appreciation, and that's what's so sad. Yeah.
What about the Atlanta History Center?
Or isn't there a Georgia Historical Society? Might be able to. Well, the History Center too.
The History Center probably would be a good choice. And then the other question, at our last meeting, we mentioned trying to find out where the E. Howard is. Did we actually locate E. Howard?
Yes, that was my assignment to do that. I contacted Byron. Byron said that the governor wanted to have the office recarpeted, so he had his staff, had the maintenance people just move it. So they left the pendulum on and everything, just moved the clock. And so Byron went in and they couldn't get it back to running. So Byron went back in and moved it back to where it was. He said that what was frightening was the fact that they had that pendulum, which is mercury, just barely hanging on to something there. He wasn't sure what it was. And if it had fallen, of course, that mercury would have broken and you'd have 3 vials of mercury everywhere. He explained to them the problem there with the mercury and how they need to take care of it. He got it back running. It's where it is, but they just, he retrained everybody, but you know, that changes quite often too.
Yes, we've found that with the mansion too. Continuity is very difficult to maintain.
Yes, sir.
Would there be some way of typing up a notice in rather bold print and maybe laminating it and attaching it to the back of the clock, or somewhere that if they should possibly move it again, they'll run across this message, maybe with contact information on what and how to do things?
Mary, there is a plaque that we placed beside the clock that tells about it and what to do and how to handle it. And we instructed that, but of course, administrations move all that stuff, and that's what the staff, they moved all that stuff. That's what happens.
That's why I was thinking about something that was physically attached to the back of the clock.
Yes, that's a good idea, I think, yeah.
We
Well,
also,
it's up till you pick it up and turn it around to read it.
That's it.
Yeah, it's not a perfect solution, but it's one idea.
Same
Well-
thing's happening to the clock we did in the appropriation room, Pete, you remember? And George
Yes.
probably had with that one. They had a guy that wound it and took care of it. Now it's stopped, and they changed. They think anybody can just go in there and wind those things. They don't know what they're doing. Yeah.
that's difficult too. And another thing that the Howard that we have to be careful about is every time somebody starts to mention mercury, we have to be careful who we're mentioning that to.
Right.
Mercury does vaporize at room temperature, so there's always a vapor. And if it's a contained container in a large airspace, there's no problem whatsoever. But you'll find that these clocks actually are losing their mercury over time, so to speak.
Okay. Good advice. I didn't know that the mercury vaporized over time. So, I don't have any mercury pendulums though, but anyway. Anything else?
Yeah, I want to say something. It's been decided in my household that I have an excessive amount of clocks around the house. And so I'm going to try to sell and move and give away and dispose of all of my clock stuff. And I have a few things here which I would like to demonstrate and hope somebody would buy them. I have a list of books which I'm going to give away or sell. I have a list of tools that I'm going to give away and sell. And maybe there will be peace in the household. I've gotten rid of all the things that are ugly and are disgusting and shouldn't be done in a person's home. So if you know anybody who wants to buy some old stuff, I've got it. So on the back of it here, I'll show you what I have. There's a little carriage clock with a leather box for it that carried in. And there's a crystal regulator I need to sell. And there are 2 400-day clock globes. And one globe comes with the works of a 400-day clock. And both of them sold for $15 each. And I have a big Hershey clock, which is considered to be an ugly artifact in the house. And it's a 9-tube Hershey, 7 feet tall, 12-inch front. It will ring 3 different tunes. And I don't know whether you can see it or not, but there's a picture of the thing. And if you know anybody who wants to buy a great big monstrous Hershey that's a household eyesore, well, refer them to me. So that's all I have to say for this day. Oh, I got I got a 18-karat solid gold Elgin watch right here for sale, and it's in the where'd it go? It's worth about $2,000, and I'd be willing to sell it for that. And so there's just a regulator right here. I want about $1,200–1,500 for it, I think. And this little carriage clock, I want $200 for it. So that's all I got to say, I guess.
Well, Dick, I sent out the email to everyone on the Hershey. Did you get any
I have not
response?
been overwhelmed. I appreciate you sending it very much, but I haven't been overwhelmed at all with inquiries. Brenda makes face masks these days. That's the reason I have this iron board in here in my room. And she makes about 10 or 12 of them every day and hands them out. And she's been a good lady. That's it, I guess. But you'll be hearing more from me about need to get rid of some clocks. So that's all I got for today.
Okay, Dick.
If you want any of these clocks, I've got a list of them, and I'll send you the list of books I have, a list of clocks I have, and the list of tools I have. So if you're interested, let me know.
All right. Anything else?
That's enough, I think.
Yeah. Rod, I see that you're on the call. I don't know if you remember, but our last Tuesday night group meeting, I ordered some parts for you. I have those, and just, let me know if you want me to mail them to you or just hold on to them until we meet again on Tuesdays.
That could be a while, right?
Yeah.
I hate to admit it, but I haven't done much clockwork since then, but that kind of stuff happens, I guess.
Well, just let me know if you decide you want me to send them to you, and I will.
Okay. I think you've got several things that I need to put things back together again.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can start meeting on Tuesdays again soon. Randy's not on the call, but I know he's staying in touch with the school, and will let us know when we can start meeting.
I guess we'll get a good clue on that based on how things go with people going to school every day.
Right. Yeah. Once they decide, I don't understand why the schools, and Brooks could probably talk about this more, but I don't know why all the counties can't get together and start school the same day. So I only have to listen to the story on the news once instead of 50 times in August and September. So,
I'm sure it'll vary depending upon how things are in each different location. So,
Well, by law, each system of the 180 school systems are an independent agency. That passed about 10 years ago, and each local board makes their own decisions. The only things required, they have to have a maximum of 160 days. They can start in when they want to. There's no state requirement of starting in any time. That's independent individuals. So that's why you see this difference. Yeah, each local system is independent. Yeah.
it's a shame they can't get together and pick a day.
They had that, but you take a system like Gwinnett with 200,000, then most systems of the 138 systems have less than 3,000 kids. So that's the difference. So it's that used to have that. You had to start after Labor Day, before Memorial Day. You had to get out, but they've left it up to local systems now. They have to change the law. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
You want to do a little show and tell?
Yeah. Do you have something you want to show?
Yeah. How do I get control? Share content?
Yeah, you should have it, George.
Whoops.
Yeah.
My hand.
What?
Bear with me here a second.
He looks like he's got, oh, I just peeked over George's shoulder and he's loading up his show and tell pictures.
Can you see it?
Yes, we
Can
do.
you all hear?
Yes, we can see it.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, let me start by saying that one of our Tuesday night class members, Jeff, had sent to Dan a couple of pictures and some information about an auction being held where this clock was going to be auctioned off. I think it was in North Carolina. And I thought it was significant enough to use it as a show and tell. It's a Augusta label, triple decker, and I thought it was unique enough that we should talk about it. It's by Dyer and Wadsworth. They operated between 1837 and 1840. And according to Chauncey Jerome, in 1837, Dyer travels to the south and visits Augusta, where Southern men were finishing clocks for the Southern market. There was and I think I mentioned this last month, there's a donated Dyer and Wadsworth clock in the Augusta Richmond County Museum, of which it was said by the donor that her grandmother's slaves put their flat silver in the clock case, wrapped the course in blankets and heavy canvas and buried it until the scoundrel passed. So anyway, Jeff sent this to Dan and Dan forwarded it to me and I gave my opinion to Jeff about the clock. So let's see here. I'm just comparing this to a typical triple decker that I happen to have, which is a John Burge and Ives clock from dates from 1832 to 1820. No, I'm sorry, 1832 to 1833. But you can see that this clock has a lot fancier features. Has a lot going for it. Besides the beautiful columns, the typical middle mirror, and the dial is different than a lot of them. And of course it has the crested eagle on the splat. A lot of my information comes from this particular book. The Contributions of Joseph Ives, Connecticut Clock Technology, 1810 to 1862, by Ken Roberts. The interesting thing about the clock that Jeff found, if you look at the lower glass painting, it's sort of atypical from what we see on these. This is more of a typical bottom glass. And this one is very similar to the one that I was just showing you that I found in the Ives book. And quite different from the typical ones we see. That I think it makes it sort of unique. But I did find this particular clock in the Ives book, and that's the only one I could find that had that type of painting. I'm sorry for the poor quality, but it's a photo out of the book. This is the label for the clock. Pretty good condition actually for being what, 100 and getting close to 180, 190 years old. This is another label from one of my clocks, with a C&LC Ives Bristol, Connecticut label. Let's see what. Unfortunately, here we can't see the printer label, the printer line, but I would guess that the same printer on this particular clock would be the same one that we have on the clock that our chapter owns, which is, hold on a second. The printer on the chapter's Augusta Dyer and Wadsworth clock, which is a wood movement clock, is signed printed at the office of the States' Rights Sentinel, which was a local newspaper. This particular label has a printer of P. Canfield in Hartford, Connecticut. So this is the movement that's in the clock that Jeff sent us. And it's a typical movement that John Burge used for quite a few years, and a typical 8-day strap brass movement. And a lot of these movements you will find are stamped BM on that horizontal, the largest horizontal brass strap. And BM standing for Burge and Mallory. So the thing about Ives, who invented these clocks and was the man behind each of these various movements, in the Roberts book says that C&LC Ives and later firms of John Burge had control of Joseph Ives' patent, particularly the patent for the roller pinion patent, which was patented on April 12th, 1833. I understand that Joseph Ives was not the best businessman, but he was a great mechanic. Constantly tinkering and changing movement designs and wheel and pinion counts. And you'll notice on this particular clock, the teeth, he changed also the teeth on various productions over the years. So here we have a movement that's in the clock Jeff sent us with larger, coarser teeth. And here we have teeth that are finer. This is on the cheese clock, called so because they punched out circles on each of the wheels. Here's a close-up of the teeth, the finer teeth. Now, some of the wheels, he also changed the count, the strike count. So some of the wheels have 24, some of the movements have 24-hour strikes, and some are 12-hour strikes. So constantly tinkering and changing, as I said. Now here, and you also notice that the governor at the top left part of this picture is up on a separate brass piece. And this one is another of Ives' designs. This is called the A-frame movement. And the teeth on this one are different as well. These are, as you can see, pretty good. They're different than the others. This one has more square teeth. So constantly changing, tinkering, as they say. So, of course, Ives was also known by his patented roller pinions, and which he produced in all of most of his clocks. Now, this is the back of the Dyer and Wadsworth clock that Jeff noticed that it's going to be auctioned off or will be auctioned off. And you'll notice that it's all original on the back. It hasn't been tinkered with, so to speak. It's got the vertical supports on the back of the splat, and which you see a lot of with clocks that have splats with gilded plaster eagles or whatever on the front. The only thing not original on the, if you'll notice on the bottom of the clock, the feet. These are bun feet, and they're probably replacement feet because they typically had the chair feet type of feet on the clock. But going back to the dial on this particular clock, it's really beautifully made as opposed to the typical, I guess this would be more of a typical type movement you'd see, I mean dial that you would see of this era. This one's got really black within the chapter rings, brass hands instead of the typical spade and spear hands that you would find on these clocks. So the other thing I wanted to just throw in at the end here is in the AJC paper on Thursday, they had a picture and an article about the recent primary problems, the election primary problems. And I noticed in the background, if you'll see, this is a Senate Appropriations room, and there's a picture of the Waterbury clock hanging on the wall. And it's a clock that Pete and I worked on several years back, and Pete had the movement, did a lot of work on the movement, and I had the case in my shop, and we ended up putting it all together again and met up with Brooks down at the Capitol one day, and with some help from one of the workers, we hung the clock from a ladder. I think Pete was up on the ladder, and so there it is, and it looks like it's probably running because it looks like the pendulum was in motion. So anyway, that's about it for what I have. And anybody, any questions or comments? Oh, the splat on the, forgot to mention. I'll go back here. Besides the feet that were replaced, the splat looks like it was damaged and in pieces that have been put back together. Somebody did a pretty good job, and it looks pretty good for its age. There's one little piece, I guess, missing of the plaster on the left side, but all in all, a beautiful clock, I think. And hopefully it'll do well in the auction and somebody will get it. Anyway, that's it for me.
Hey, George.
Yeah.
George.
Yeah. I can't hear you, Brooks.
Brooks, you're muted.
Can you hear it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, go back to that picture of the appropriation, that clock you and Pete worked on. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's interesting about that clock, that is Pete and George really worked on that thing. We were up many years ago, we were up in Chattanooga at a meeting, and a guy had this clock. We looked on the back of the clock, and it had a Georgia sticker. It was the original clock that hung in that room there back years ago when the Georgia Supreme Court met in that room. So I came back and talked to, they were remodeling the Capitol, so came back and talked to Speaker Tom Murphy about it and told him we needed that clock. He sent a plane, an airplane, up to New York now, the guy that had it, and purchased that clock, flew it back to Atlanta, and it stayed there. And then I think Bernie worked on it first, George, didn't he?
Yes.
And then
yes.
George and Pete took it and restored it and put it back original. So, but that was the original clock that hung in the appropriate. We found it at the regional, and as I said, the speaker Tom Murphy sent a plane to New York to buy it. So we're glad to get that back.
Pete, thanks, Brooks. Pete,
Yes.
maybe you want to make a comment about the work you had to do on the movement.
Okay, I can do that. You can't see my picture, but this is a picture of that clock when we put it back in the appropriations room. Okay, I'll show that. It took a lot of extensive work. It was missing pieces. It had been reworked. There were pillars missing. The amount of work, and I have all the pictures George took of it through the woodwork that he did on it. I had to put the pendulum bob on that was full of all kinds of nonsense, and it had to be taken apart, and I put 6 pounds of lead in there, poured it in, made new anchor for it. It took rather extensive rework, and Bill Curley helped make the Stopworks gears for it. And he actually went to the museum up there because the clock was missing so many things. I couldn't tell what the parts had to be in the movement. And so Bill actually, there was another one up there, and he disassembled it and took pictures of the pieces for me. That was a fair project. It was done back in 2011.
It's been that long ago, Pete?
Yes.
Wow.
How long ago, George?
Or Pete said 2011.
It's been a long time, yeah.
And I would bet it still runs.
It runs well. It's great shape, yeah.
It had to, we had to come up with a new weight for it, have to have the right diameter so that it would miss the pendulum, and proper weight shell, and hang the.
Pete, you remember somebody had converted it to a 2-weight. It should have been a 1-weight. You remember you had to rework that.
We had to rework that, and they had the weight hanging off of there. It's a time only, but it has 2 winding arbors, and it was set up so that it was only working off of one of them. And it took a lot of playing around with the innards of the movement to get it back to what it was originally, yes. But it's as it was originally. No,
Good job, Pete.
and it's a good timekeeper. It is a regulator.
I think it was
Y'all did a great job with that clock. That's a beautiful clock. Great clock.
The casework, yeah, George, there were pieces that had to be reworked all along the face.
I think it's a Model 55, if I'm not mistaken.
Model 66.
66, yeah.
I was close.
You were within 10 numbers, George. That's good.
All right, very good, Pete and Brooks. Yeah, a lot of history there.
Yeah,
You know, this is what makes me so sad many times, that all the work that's been done and all the history there, I agree with someone that said a while ago, we need to, somehow that needs to be kept and not lose that history. That bothers me, yeah.
is there some way that you can put my view up large on the screen? If we come out of the presentation and go back to, because I have pictures that we took of the work as it was being done that could be seen through my Zoom cameras.
Bob, do we need to
Yeah,
stop share?
I can do that. I can make Pete a host.
Okay. Is there anything I have to do? Stop share?
Yes, you need to stop share.
Okay. And
Hang on 1 second here.
Billy Johnson, do you know you're standing on your head right now?
Pardon? I'm dizzy all the damn time and I bump my head all the time, so.
No, I didn't know that. How about now?
Now you're right side up, Billy.
Move over a
I'm
little.
always turned around.
Bob, you're muted.
I think if you put it in, well, you've got it in speaker view, so yeah.
Okay, Pete is now co-host. Do you know what to do, Pete, with sharing?
Oh, well, it says share screen.
Yeah, so is there pictures on your laptop? Or are you just gonna hold something up?
If everybody put theirs in speaker view, you can do it.
Yeah, that's another way to do it. Everybody just go to speaker view.
Okay. Well, speaker view, it still highlights me, but it hasn't given me a larger image. Is there some?
Everybody who puts you on speaker view will have you as a large image, and so you can just hold up what you'd like to hold up, or if you have something that's electronic file, there you go.
Pete, you're full screen, yeah.
George working on the case in his shop. There's the case as it was being worked on.
Speaker mode?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
This is when we installed the clock, and
No, but you gotta fix that.
Brooks, George, and I.
That's embarrassing. You might not care, but everybody else does. It's aggravating for everybody.
There we are, setting it up.
Pete up on the ladder.
Back when I did ladders.
Huh.
This is actually making lead to go in the shell of the weight at a particular diameter weight so that it would miss the pendulum. George had to make a new leader for it. There's lead being poured. It was poured in the pendulum bob and channeled out for the rod. Here's
I lost it.
a new anchor that was made for it, and some of the screws for holding it down, the movement down.
Yeah.
There's the movement on a test stand. Pendulum.
I won $80 off of the people that wanted you to pay 30.
The other side of it.
What'd you do with it? What'd you do with it?
And that's pretty much it for that show and tell. We just happened to, we did a presentation on it. We had all those pictures made up.
Yeah.
How much money you got in your golf bag?
Pretty small movement for that big case, but it's a beauty.
It doesn't take much. When you want a regulator, you want a very heavy pendulum, a very light suspension spring. And what it is.
Yes. Okay.
That's it for me.
Thanks, Pete.
Sure.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it. Well, that's it for me, yes.
Okay, George?
No, I think, we ought to encourage people to future meetings to bring in show and tell things so that
Yeah.
we can see all these interesting things that people have.
Yeah, Bob, I keep referring to Bob adding all this stuff on his list, but if you, Bob, if you would add a show and tell category on the email when you send it out. And I need to,
Dan,
yes.
would it be easier for people to do show and tell like I did, is take pictures of what they want to do show and tell on so that they can get it on the big screen?
I think so. That way they'll have everything in order and they can scroll through them.
Yeah.
I'm interested in show and sell.
Well, Dick, you can be the first one to auction off the clocks and parts. So, because Brooks is going to be ready to auction next meeting. So.
Hey, who'll give me $5? Anybody give me $5?
What are we buying?
I'm interested in giving them away.
You know how this club is. Hey, you better be ready to give them away. Hey, we gotta get the money.
That's right.
I remember when the high bid was $5.
Well, it's like when people notify me want to know if they can bring their clocks on Sunday and auction them, and I tell them, you're selling to people who have more clocks than they should have, and so you're not going to get retail for them. So be prepared to get low amounts. I'm supposed to meet a lady from Florida sometime this week. She has a storage shed just down the street from me, and she wants to sell her clocks. I've been talking with her for almost a year now. But I've told her that we don't meet on Sundays. But I told her I'd meet her there and look at what she's got in storage. We'll see what to do next. I did want, and I apologize at the last Zoom meeting. I thanked Bob and Mary and George and some others, but I failed to thank the brains behind Bob, and that's Fran. I failed. I meant to thank her. She wasn't in the picture, so I omitted her, and I apologize for that. But I'd like to thank all of you who have contributed to the meetings and stepped up and did testing and all that stuff that we did last time, and all of those who called in today. I did have one thing, Larry. Jeff. Were you successful in winning the bid on that clock?
Is he?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Which clock?
The one that George was talking about.
Oh no, it's not auctioned off till September 12th.
Oh, okay.
Are you going to bid on it, Jeff?
I mean, I'll look at it. I thought about it, but I haven't. I mean, it's just not come up yet.
Yeah.
So,
Well, let us know if you get it.
okay, I will.
Maybe you can, if you get it in time for the next meeting, you can do your show and tell on the actual clock.
I will.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah, Dan, I do have something. Normally where some of us would be today in different times is we'd be packing up from the regional and taking stuff over to the storage building. Sunday, Labor Day regional.
It's true.
So what popped up on my phone is a bill from the storage place for the coming year.
Oh.
So Donna, I believe, is still on. We have to figure out how we're going to handle that. I could go over there and pay it, or we could do something different.
Bob, I think what we've done in the past is you've paid it and then send out a notice to each of the chapter presidents to get your money back.
I think we
Okay.
each chapter chipped in a
Yeah,
quarter.
Each
or
chapter pays a fifth of it.
fifth.
So if you're hearing me, I think that's what we've done. Because I know that when we've gotten the notice to pay, we've sent you our check right away.
I don't mind doing that because I'm right here in Chattanooga, so I can take care of that again.
I think that's what we've done in the past. So, if that's good with you, then I would think each chapter would get their money to you immediately. You might even go ahead and send the notice out right away that you're about to pay it. That way you get your money maybe before you actually have to make the payment.
Yeah, because it's, I don't remember how much it is, but
I
it's
think it's like 125 per chapter.
Yeah, I was thinking it's $400 or $500 easy.
Yeah.
So.
No, not each, but per
No,
chapter.
I mean for the total.
125 or 150, something like that per chapter.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a lot for him to lay out on his own for the total. So the quicker you can get the information out to the other clubs, you would get you your money.
Yes,
Okay, I'll handle it, not a problem.
All right.
I wanted to remind you.
Thank you.
And thanks for taking care of that. Anything else?
Well,
Going
what,
once?
Dan,
Yes.
weren't we gonna have a virtual picture of the coffee and donuts?
Well, I thought Bob, that's why he didn't call in at 10, because I thought he was going to get the coffee and donuts.
I ate them all.
Well, I don't know. I saw something last night about a peach pie and Brenda that Mary mentioned on Facebook. I see no pie either.
No, Brenda didn't share.
Yeah, Brenda didn't show up.
Yeah.
She's in sugar overload from having eaten that whole pie by herself.
That's right.
Well, I appreciate all of you calling in, and I assume we'll have another Zoom meeting for next month, and hopefully we'll get back face to face sooner than later.
Thank you. And Dan, you can put some clothes on next time so we can see you.
That's right. Well, all I have on is a shirt. And Gary, I appreciate the emails. I get a kick out of those. So.
Okay.
All right. That it?
One final thing for Pete. When we hang up, there'll be a box in the lower right-hand corner that says "End meeting." Since you're the host right now, if you could hit that, that would be great.
Hey, Pete, we're ready for you to move back up too.
We definitely want Pete to move back up.
That's right.
You're muted, Pete.
Probably not going to happen for a while. When we moved down here, I said, this is the last time I'm moving anywhere.
Well, we miss you.
Yeah, we'd like to have you at all the meetings.
Wish I could be.
All right. Well, I'll see y'all next week. I mean, at the next meeting.
Everybody
Appreciate
enjoy
it.
the holiday. Bye-bye.
Happy Labor Day.
Go on.
Bye, everybody. Keep yours on and find out why it's shaking.
No, I mean, I can do it there. I don't know how I would do that.
I'm ready to click end whenever I should.
Always fine.
Okay. Ending meeting.